and welcome to Ivanti Service Manager Training. In this course, we're going to talk about business object relationships. I'm going to give you an overview of relationships. We're going to talk about in there the description of a relationship and the uses and some examples of existing relationships. We are going to create a relationship between two business objects, and then we're going to combine both of those into a layout. All right, so let's get started. Okay, I'm already logged into ISM using my Service Desk Analyst role. Let's take a look at some relationships out of the box. We're going to open up Incident again. And so within here, if I open up a record, an incident, down below we see task. Okay, so the incident business object and the task business object, they have a relationship. So that just allows one record to work with the data in another record. Now there's different types of relationships, and also it's important to know who the parent is in a relationship and who the child is in a relationship. So let's take a look at this first. So over here in the relationship, we've got parent versus child. The one that we're just looking at on the screen was incident, and we were looking at tasks. So in this relationship, incident is the parent and task is the child. Okay? The reason you need to know which one is the parent is that's where you're going to go to set up and also to make changes in the relationship. You're going to go to the parent. Over here on the right-hand side, just another example. We've got parent here for the incident, and for our child, we have change. Normally, you'll see incident as a top-level tab and change as a top-level tab. So you might think of them both as being parents. They definitely are and definitely can. But in this relationship here, incident is the parent and change is the child. Let's go back to our application here. All right, so here we have task, and so incident's the parent, task is the child. Oops. Come over here to change, and you can see they have a relationship because we have a tab there. And incident is the parent, and change is the child. Now if I come up here and I open up the change business object, okay, let me just open one of these here. All right, so here's my change business object, and then down here on the bottom, these are other business objects that are linked to it. So here's incident. Okay, so this is showing that change and incident have a relationship. But in this case, change is the parent and incident is the child. So again, the main reason you need to know who the parent is in the relationship is that's where you're going to go to set up the relationship or make changes to that relationship. Okay, something else you need to know. So here I go with my slideshow again. Okay, is, well, we already talked about parent versus child, but associates versus contains. You'll want to think about this. This one here we're showing as a contains relationship. Think of it this way. So incident is my parent and task is my child. If it's a contains relationship and I go and I delete this incident, do I want those tasks to go away as well? Well, yes, I don't really need the tasks if there's, no longer an incident. So that would be a contains relationship. Over here on the right-hand side, we're looking at an incident and the change together. This one is an associates relationship. So in this one, I've got my incident, and then I can have changes linked to it. But if I delete this incident, do I want the changes to go away? Well, no, that's another function, in our department. So these changes are actually logged. So no, I wouldn't want that to go away. So that's when I would create an associates relationship. Okay, so let's go into the configuration console. Here to my wrench and go to the configuration console. And I'm going to go to business objects. And we're going to take a look over here at the incident business object. And so in here you see relationships. We also have named relationships, but don't worry about that. You're not going to be using that or even seeing that when you create your own relationships. But if I click on relationships over here, here we have the different names, and these are just names. The reason I like to point that out is because you're going to see things like, you'll see things like associates, associated, maybe even ASSOC, like that as an abbreviation. These are simply names. Okay, this can say associates and still be a contains relationship. So don't completely go by that to find out about the relationship. But these are the relationship names, and we can see over here the cardinality, meaning how many of the parent records versus how many of the child, and then this is who they're linked to. All right, and then the type of relationship that it is. And past that, you're going to say through fields. So what happens in the relationship is, let me go to the user interface and go to incident. All right, I'm going to open up one here. Let's do that one. Okay, so in here, my incident business object has a unique identifier, which is the rec ID number. Not the incident, but the rec ID number. It's a big, long number. And then if I want to have a relationship with another business object, let's say task, the task business object has to have a link field in it. And so what happens is when I'm on the incident or any other business object, and I go to create a new task, what happens is the unique identifier of this incident, so the rec ID, it goes into a link field on the child. Now, you don't always see the link field on the form itself because you don't really need to, but that's what's happening is the rec ID of that is going into the task. So that's how the system knows when you open this incident which tasks to open up as well. So the link field, you have to have that in your child business object. All right, so let's take a look. There's another way that we can look at the relationships. If I come over here to ERD, this is more of a graphical, and actually, oh, it is going to work, okay. And so if I scroll down a little bit, here's incident, and these are all the different business objects that have a relationship with incident. So task, that's our task assignment, that's this one here. If I come over here to the line, I can see, okay, the name of that relationship, incidents, ASSOC, task assignment. Down here, you see the incident rec ID, so that's the unique identifier for this business object, incident. Okay, and then it's, oops, I keep getting off of that there. And then to the right of that, it says task assignment dot parent link rec ID. So that's the link field in the child that the rec ID from the incident is going to go into. And then you'll see the cardinality. So it's just another way to look at it. I kind of prefer the graphical view. Sometimes it takes a while to load up, but it seems to be okay now. Okay, so those are existing relationships. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new relationship. And so what we're going to do is, let me switch back to my Service Desk Analyst. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to have on this, this business object here, the hotel reservations, I want to be able to open this up, and so I can see this relationship, and then maybe have a tab on the bottom with, let's see, with maybe the other guests or something like that that's going to be there. So I could do something like that. All right, so what I'm going to do, I already have this hotel reservations business object. I'm going to create another business object that's going to hold the other guests' names, and then I'm going to link that with this one here. All right, so let's get that going. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to business objects. Okay, so I'm going to choose new object, standalone business object, and this one's going to be my guest list. Okay, Let me go to Fields, Add New, and I'm going to do a text field. Okay, just add that. All right. Okay. Now, because I know that I'm going to link my hotel reservation to this here, this needs to have a link field. So over here, I'm going to choose Add New. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to choose Link. Okay, you didn't see that, but I actually clicked on Save there, and I have everything. But what I'm in the process of doing is adding my link field. So here you see the field type. I give it a name, and this is going to be, I'm going to call this one link field. Okay. I come down here, and I'm going to add this field. All right, so I've got the 3 fields, contact number, name, and link field. Save that again there. And I want a form list and layout, so I'm going to come over here, go to my details, and just auto-generate. And click OK. Okay, and then of course you'd go to your form and list and make whatever changes that you want to that. Okay. All right, so now what I've done is I've created the business object that's going to have a link with my hotel reservations. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to link the parent with the child. So in this case here, my parent is going to be my reservation business object, and then my child is going to be the guests. So over here I would go to Relationships. Okay, Add New, and then find who the child's going to be, which I said it was going to be my guest list. Oops, too far. Here it is, guest list. Okay. All right, so for the relationship here, it gives it a designer name and a display name. We can just leave those as is. Unless you want to, maybe it's going to be a contains and I want to actually change the name itself, I could do that. So in this case, I will. Just so what you're looking at is the name of the business object. I'm sorry, the relationship. Okay. Now, internal reference name. Now, the internal reference name cannot be the same as the display or designer name. What I usually like to do for the internal reference name is put the parent business object on the left. So in my case, it's going to be reservations. And then guests. You can't even put a period in here, so I'm just going to put reservations and guests. All right. Now, I'm on my reservation business object, and then down here, relation to, so I'd already selected the guest list. It sets some of these things for you, like the relationship key, and if you want to do a reverse relationship. And then down here, we've got some other options here. So relationship is audited, so we make changes and link or unlink. You can check that. Full text search enabled. I'll use incident again as my example. All right, so when I'm in an incident business object and I click up here in the upper right in the simple search and I put a value in there, it's searching on my incident. It's searching all of the fields that are marked as full text indexed. Okay, but I could have other things linked to it, so I could have my task there. Well, if I want to be able to type in this little simple search window and also have it search the tasks, then those tasks fields have to be set as full text indexed as well. Okay? All right, so that would be this one here. And then prevent delete when linked objects exist. So in here, I just, created a task, but if I were to do my, let's say my configuration item, okay, here you're going to see link. And when you want to link is if we know that, let's say this incident is in the system and so is the configuration item that I want to link it to. So all I would do on this record is choose link and then look up the other record or records. And now I've got two of these records linked. So what this option does up here is you can say prevent delete when linked objects exist. So if I went back to the Service Desk console and tried to delete that incident that I was just working on, it would tell me that I can't because it has linked objects. So what you would have to do to be able to delete it is you would have to unlink. So I can do one at a time or I can do a couple. Unlink, and then once you've done that, then it will let you delete the parent record. Okay? Now down below we've got, this is where you're going to set up the cardinality. We've got this business object, meaning the reservation, and then the other business object, which is called guest list. Okay? All right, so in the help files you'll see descriptions of what these do right here. I actually have a slide that I'll throw up here for you. Okay, so you'll be able to find this in the help files, but basically it's telling you about the cardinality. So one to many, one contains many, or one is contained in many, things like that. And then the example, one employee or parent can have many incidents, which are children. All right, so that would be my one to many. Or my one parent can be sent to many employees, which, oops, I didn't mean to do that, which would be children. Okay, and so that's my one-to-many, and it could be a one-to-one. Maybe there can only be one other guest in the hotel room, something like that. Many-to-many, and then many-to-one. So go ahead and take a look at this before you start building your relationship. Okay, so down here, this business object, I'm going to say there's going to be exactly one. Okay, so this is that one reservation. But then how many guests can we have in there? Well, we can have 0 or many. You decide what you're going to put there. Now in here, this is where you're going to tell it whether it's an associates or a contains. So if this reservation got canceled, I'd probably want to cancel the guest list, that was along with it. So I would make that a contains. Now down below here, this one here, sometimes people forget to do, but here's where you're actually going to link the unique identifier to the link field. So just a reminder, so when I was on incident, oops, and I create a task, it takes the unique identifier from the incident and puts it into the link field of the task. So for ours, we're going to have our reservation, and then down below we're going to have the guest list, and I created a link field in the guest list. So over here, here's my unique identifier, rec ID, and then over here on the right, I'm going to see the fields that I can link it to. Now, this rec ID primary key, well, never mind. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'm just going to go to the one that I selected, which is link field. Okay, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to add this relationship. Okay, and I will save that relationship. Okay, now if I were to do something like maybe put our journal notes, our activity history tab, okay, maybe I want that to be on my reservations. So over here, I'm still on my reservation business object, and for the child business object, I'm going to look for journal notes, spelling lesson first. All right, so here's journal, and then these here extended business objects, journal email and journal notes, meaning that when I'm in here, and I choose add, if I choose email or I choose notes, something different is going to pop up depending on what I select there. Okay, so it's another example of, extending a business object. Okay, so I'm going to do journal notes. Okay, and again, you're just going to set this up. So I'm going to put in reservations and then notes. All right, come down here, and so this business object, my reservation, it has, the rec ID. So how many of these relationships, of these records, I'm going to choose exactly one. And then over here, though, I'm going to say there could be 0 or many of the notes. And actually, I would make that a contains as well. And then over here, where am I putting this rec ID? In the journal link field. So I'm going to pick the link field for the journal. And just a hint, they usually will call it parent link in some of the out-of-the-box business objects. So I'm going to choose that. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to add that relationship and save. Okay, so I was just on, or I am on, my Ivanti Towers reservation business object, and it now has 2 relationships. Well, now what I'd like to do is I would like to be able to come into the user interface. Okay, and when I click on the hotel reservations, if I open one, I would like to see a tab down here so that I can see who the guests are, and then also I can add notes to it if I want to. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, so in my reservation business object, what I'm going to do is I am going to go to the layout, and I can use my all locations or this one or create a new one. I'll just do the all locations for now. And the only view I want to put it on is the main form. I'm not going to, well, I could do it on these 2 as well, but I'm just going to use main form here. Now, remember I mentioned that if we're on a form view, we add a form over here. But if we want to add another tab down here, this has to be a list view. All right, so over here on the left, I'm going to expand this. And here's the one that has list in the tooltip there. So I'm going to drag this out. Real important, you do not want to drag it there. You don't want to drag it and release it there. You want your mouse pointer to be on the add new and with the plus right there. Okay? If you don't drop it there, you're going to end up with one big long list. Okay? Oops, I did something wrong with my relationship. Oh no. Okay, I just realized something. I did this here with the cardinality. I did the exactly one. Yeah, I want to change this so it would be the 0 or 1. Okay, and then this one over here is going to be the 0 or many. Not sure what I was thinking there. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And I'm going to do that for my other relationship. There we go, and save. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to add the tabs. So let me change my role here. Okay, and so if I have a record open, on the bottom what I want to see is I want to see tabs, or a tab, okay, so that, I can click and put the additional guests or also put, comments, things like that there. All right, so to do that, I have to update the layout. So I'm going to change my role back to administrator. Okay, come back over here. And so I'm still on my reservation here. I'm going to go to my layout. And I'll just use the existing. You can create a new one or just edit the ones that you already have. And you're going to come down. So here I'm just going to do it on my main form. You can do it on all, but I'm just going to do the main form. Okay. Now, I preached this earlier. When you're doing a form view, you want a form right here on top. Also, when you're doing a form view, the tab needs to be a list. Okay. So I'm going to choose related panels. These would be all the business objects that have a relationship now with my reservation business object. And some are going to have a lot of different, forms and lists. That's because that's what was set up when those business objects were created. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my guest list. Remember, I want the one that has list on the tooltip, so I'm going to drag that out. Don't want your mouse pointer here. You want to drop it right next to the add new. So just make sure that plus sign is blue, not that one. Okay, and then save. All right, so there is my tab for my guest list. And I also want to do one for my journal notes. So I'm looking for a list view. Here it is. Let's just drag that out. Want the plus right next to the tab. And save. All right. So now I've got a couple of tabs down here. Now you can edit these tabs. So on this one right here, if I this gear button here, okay, display name. So this is what the tab is going to say. So maybe on my tab, I only want it to say, notes or comments or something like that. All right, here's the relationship. You can have things hidden or do link button filter. For example, for the link button, if I were linking CIs, maybe I have a filter so it's only showing ones that are not retired or something like that. So you can have filters. And then initially visible. So on our incident, we have that task initially visible, but you could hide them under your little plus sign over there. Closable. So if I'm looking at my incident right now, we see that task is not closable. There's no X to close that. So if you want it to be closable, you just put a check mark there. I'm going to leave mine up though. And then show count in title. So task is another good example. As I add tasks, it's changing that value in the little count field there. So I'll do the count and save. All right, so that was this tab. Now if I want to go to the other one and change it a little bit, I'm going to go to my little cog there. And I'm going to make this one say additional. Additional guests, and I'll also show the count on that one, and then save. Okay, so now I've got my layout set up. Come back over here and save. So this is the layout that I'm currently using here in the Service Desk console. So when I change my role to Service Desk Analyst, okay, and I go to Hotel Reservations, I'm going to choose New Record, and I didn't add it to these views here. I just did it to this one, but you can definitely add it to those. So I'm just going to select this one. So now I've got, my form here, and then down below I've got additional guests and then notes. So if I did new, oops, it wants me to, I know better than that. Let's put in a name. Okay, let's throw some things in there. Let me save it. Guest. And so in here, I can add the guests. Now this one here, what I should have done is I should have gone to the form. Remember I did a auto-generate UI because you don't want this link field showing in here. So you definitely want to go in and edit that form. Okay, so that is the relationships. Let's add a note here. Do a memo, other. Okay, so now I've got there, and it puts the one in the note there. Okay, all righty. So let's take a look at some ways that you can get help. Okay, so here's where you can go to get help. Using the administrator role, go to the help files within the product, and if you go to Home, Administer, and Using Relationships, you can find a lot of information on there. Also, don't forget to join the Ivanti Insider. And then finally, here's some exercises that you might try out for using relationships. So create a relationship between your reservation business object and the journal notes business object. Okay, remember you're going to go to the parent, which in our case is going to be the reservation, and then you're going to link the child to that. So you're going to have a relationship in that direction. And then go into your layout. I just did mine on my main form on the layout, and then update it so that you can have a tab for adding notes that displays down on the bottom. So kind of like what I just did there. Okay.